Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty hit record highs in early trade, but a late sell-off wipes out the gains. IT stocks lead the decline. Mid-caps underperform. Hindalco's US-based subsidiary Novelis files draft IPO papers. The company is looking at a potential valuation of $15 billion. Sources say the aluminum giant is looking to raise around $1 billion from the US IPO. The story first broke on CNBC-TV18. GQG Partners Rajiv Jen says valuations in India may be a bit extended, but they're not crazy. Adds India's corporate earnings growth is the best among emerging markets for 5 years. GQG's investments were $22 billion in India. Jen says they would have liked to buy LIC shares, but couldn't find any block deals last year. That's an exclusive.
In a country that has been a long part of our history, over 90 years here in India, and today it is one of the beating hearts of the Shell company.
The global CEO of Shell, Vail Savan, says India is one of the beating hearts of the company, a core hub for talent and innovation. Adds he's not worried about the slowdown in EV sales. That's another CNBC-TV18 exclusive. 48 hours ahead of a scheduled extraordinary general meeting to oust him, Byju Ravindran says the $200 million rights issue has been fully subscribed. Also offers to restructure the board of crisis-hit Byju's. Investors who own 30% stake in the firm have called for a shareholder meeting on Friday to remove Byju as CEO and revamp the board. The Union Cabinet is likely to approve a hike in sugarcane fare and remunerative price for the next fiscal 6 months in advance. Sources say the government will hike the FRP by 25 rupees a quintal to 340 rupees. FRP is the minimum price rate at which sugar mills have to buy from sugarcane farmers. Multiple farmers injured after Haryana police resumes firing tear gas shells using drones as they attempt to halt their march to Delhi. The government says it's ready for the next round, but farmers demand a statement from the Prime Minister or the Home Minister providing legal guarantee on minimum support price. United States vetoes a UN resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza for the third time, says it would undermine negotiations over a hostage deal. UK abstains from voting even as all other members vote in favour of a ceasefire, barring the US. Imran Khan's political rivals join hands to form a coalition government in Pakistan and keep Khan's party out of power. Shahbaz Sharif, nominated for the post of Prime Minister. Asif Ali Zardari will be the joint candidate for the President's office. Eminent jurist and advocate Fali Nariman passes away at 95. In a legal career spanning 7 decades, Nariman handled nearly 13,000 cases. Prime Minister Modi calls him an outstanding legal mind. Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud pays tribute, calling Nariman a giant of an intellectual. India Inc. is likely to roll out an average salary hike of 9.5% this year, as per the Aon salary survey. The manufacturing sector will offer the highest increase, followed by life sciences and financial services. Well, straight to the day's market action. The Nifty and the Sensex hitting record highs in early trade, but then failing to hold on to those gains. The Nifty slipped nearly 200 points from its peak. The decline was led by IT stocks. Mid-caps also underperformed the blue chips, so finally closing a little over 0.5% lower. That's the Nifty for you. The Sensex closing 434 points lower. The Nifty Bank flat close, but in the red. The Nifty mid-cap lost a little over 1% today. But the big corporate story, Hindalco's US subsidiary Novelis has filed papers to launch a $1 billion IPO on Wall Street. Sources have told CNBC-TV18 that Hindalco is eyeing a valuation of $15 billion. Nisha is standing by with the details. The story first broke here on CNBC-TV18. Of course, the IPO announcement now official. Nisha.
That's right. It's a significant development for an Indian conglomerate, Aditya Birla Group, and not just that, for India Inc. on the whole. We are talking about the announcement of Novelis US IPO plans. And remember that Novelis is the 100% owned subsidiary of the flagship company of Aditya Birla Group, Hindalco. Now, what we are talking about here is probably the first large listing by an Indian-owned company in the US, and the second one in terms of significance in the overseas market, next only to the Bharti Group, another large conglomerate, and their Airtel Africa, you will remember, is listed in the UK. Giving that context, let's go into the specifics. Sources with direct knowledge have shared with CNBC-TV18 that Hindalco could be looking at valuation expectations in terms of the equity valuation for Novelis from this particular IPO at close to about $15 billion. Now, of course, that depends on the kind of appetite that the investors have and also capital market condition in the US. What I also gather from sources with direct knowledge is that Hindalco is looking at raising about $1 billion from the IPO of Novelis, which means that it could be selling a minority stake. Now, the announcement also had included that the entire IPO will be a secondary sale of shares by Hindalco. So the entire money from the IPO, the proceeds would be coming to Hindalco. Experts also point out that it would be helpful for the increased capex requirements for Hindalco and in terms of stabilizing the debt equity levels as well with this particular value unlocking. On the other hand, remember, confidential submission also empowers Novelis to go ahead and kickstart the process of this particular IPO. Of course, it is dependent on the process being completed and also getting the market appetite for the valuations, these valuations and this particular asset. So in the next few months, there is every likelihood of the launch depending on the market condition in the US. We reached out to Hindalco for comments on the specifics of this IPO plan. We did not receive a comment from them.
All right, Anisha, many thanks for joining us. EV charger manufacturer Exicom Telesystems' initial public offer is set to open for subscription on the 27th of February. The company's public offer is a combination of a fresh issue and an offer for sale. Sources have told Money Control that the issue price will be about 140 rupees a share. It's India's first EV charging solutions company to launch an IPO. Shares of Swan Energy fell more than 5% in early trade. This after the company announced that it plans to raise 4,000 crore rupees via qualified institutional placement with a floor price of 703 rupees a share. The big newsmaker this evening, India is one of the beating hearts of Shell. That's the word in from Byju Letter, the CEO of British energy giant Shell. Speaking with me earlier about Shell's India expansion plans, Byju Letter said India is a talent and innovation hub for the company. Speaking about energy decarbonisation, Savan said Shell is seeing an opportunity to invest in India's green hydrogen mission. He also spoke about the slowdown in electric vehicle sales, saying he's not worried about the decline and that the EV penetration will take time.
I think firstly, maybe just to sort of say the Indian energy transition is very much aligned with what we see at Shell and what our strategy is. We fundamentally believe in the role of a company like ours in providing energy security at affordable prices, as well as supporting the decarbonization of the energy system. And that's exactly what the Indian government is aiming to do. So we're very, very aligned. India serves a few key elements of our strategy. One, it is a core hub for us from a talent perspective. Actually, just recently, India has become the largest Shell population in the entire world. Over 13,000 people, engineers, technologists, AI specialists, all serving the Shell group across all the locations that we have. And so that is really, and that's why I call it the beating heart here, just because of that incredible talent base. It's also a big innovation hub for us. We can continue to develop new ideas here and export them to the world.
IP? Ideas is one thing. IP?
I think IP, ideas, both. We are able to really develop opportunities here because we are seeing a forward-leaning government when it comes to the energy transition. So you can take a lot of that, actually tailor it for the Indian context, and then over time look to export it. But your question around the asset base, I think firstly, we're proud of the fact that we have spent close to or over $5 billion already in India. So we are starting from a very strong base, and it makes it a good foundation to build off. As we look into the future, we see great opportunities. For example, in the gas value chain. We have a Hazira terminal in Gujarat. That's an opportunity to continue to grow. We are playing, of course, in the power space. We acquired Spring not too long ago, which is a core element of our power strategy. And we continue to invest heavily in that as we broaden the footprint. So there are multiple opportunities to play in the conventional energy space as well as in the low-carbon energy space.
Well, let's talk about the low-carbon energy space, because one of the big bets that you are making is on electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And I know that you're very bullish on growth in China, you're very bullish on growth in Europe as well as the US. Where does India figure in all of that?
I think India has a very important role. So indeed, we are the second largest EV charging player in the world after Tesla. And we're looking at it from a global perspective. You're absolutely right to say we see a lot of momentum at the moment in China. I mean, the penetration of EVs into the overall vehicle pool is close to 35% and expected to be around 50% by 2050. That's both two-wheelers as well as four-wheelers. We also see good momentum in Europe, not as fast as China, and similarly in the US, though not as fast as Europe. So
are you worried about what we are seeing at this point in time with this slowdown across EVs, across geographies that, that's playing out?
I'm not worried. I mean, we look at this as a long-term bet. So what we see is EV costs are coming down. It's going to take time for the penetration to happen. I mean, it's taken decades to be able to get the current car pool that we have, and it'll just take time to be able to get the EV penetration in. What we will do is we will continue to tailor our investments to the areas where we see the most traction. So, for example, if you see the US slowing down a bit, we will potentially ramp up in places like Europe or China or India. And what we see in India is an opportunity to really leverage our existing footprint here, which is around 350 retail sites that have now developed a very strong customer base, where we've developed real operational excellence in the way we market. And I'm really proud of the brand and its recognition here in India. It's one of the countries in the world, arguably, where our brand is recognized and appreciated more than any other country. And that gives us a very, very powerful, I think, asset to be able to build off.
Well, you can watch that entire conversation with Vail Savan at 7 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. From one newsmaker to the next, valuations in India may be a bit extended, but they're not crazy. That's the word in from GQG Partners Chairman Rajiv Jen. In an exclusive conversation with CNBC-TV18, Jen said that India's corporate earnings growth has been the best among emerging markets over the last 5 years. Also revealed that GQG would have liked to buy LIC shares but couldn't find any block deals last year. The company has investments worth $22 billion in India so far.
If you look at the larger markets, Indonesia, India, Brazil, Mexico, and so on and so forth, India, I feel, is one of the best earnings growth stories. So if you leave aside everything, simply look at corporate earnings growth over the last 5 years, which is basically pre-COVID till today, India has seen one of the best earnings growth amongst all emerging markets as such, right? So far better than Chinese corporate earnings have actually declined. There's always angst about having run up so fast, that there could always be a pause. But if you take a slightly longer term view, I feel that India still has quite a runway. I'm talking about sort of 3-year horizon. So the valuations are maybe a bit extended, but not crazy.
And catch that conversation with GQG's Rajiv Jen, the big India investor, at 5:30 and 10:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. The other big story this evening, EdTech startup Byju's founder and CEO has announced to shareholders that the company's $200 million rights issue has been fully subscribed. In a letter to shareholders with CNBC-TV18 has accessed, Ravindran has urged all investors to take part in the issue. In his words, participating in this rights issue may seem like a Hobson's choice. However, this is the only viable option in front of us today to prevent permanent value erosion, end of quote. The letter also promises a restructuring of the board and the appointment of 2 non-executive directors with the mutual consent of the founders and shareholders. This, he says, will take place soon after the FY23 audit is complete, which he expects to happen by the end of the current quarter. Ravindran, who claims that he already invested $1.1 billion in his personal capacity into the company over the last 2 years to pay salaries and keep operations going, says the latest fundraise will help take care of the current liabilities and provide sufficient growth capital. He's also called the narrative about the founder having an adversarial relationship with shareholders false, adding that there was nothing to be gained from conflict. Now, this letter comes just days ahead of an EGM that's been proposed by a group of shareholders who together hold 30% of the EdTech company. These shareholders are seeking the removal of Ravindran as the CEO and the appointment of a new board. CNBC-TV18's Ritu Singh has accessed the notice of the EGM and joins us now with what's on the agenda. Ritu, take us through what is expected at that EGM. What's on the agenda?
Well, there's plenty on that agenda, and the key among that is Byju Ravindran's removal as the CEO and the reconstitution of the board, citing several concerns that range from financial mismanagement to failure to enforce legal rights and a cloak and dagger approach really to shareholder information, all of it leading to substantial value loss. Now, there are 7 key items on this agenda for the EGM on Friday. The key among them, of course, include removing Ravindran as the CEO and also the removal of both Divya Gokulnath and Riju Ravindran from their respective managerial and directorial roles to prevent any further hemorrhaging of shareholder value. The proposal advocates an interim CEO appointment and the enlistment of a search firm to find the next CEO for Byju's. Board restructuring has emerged as a focal point, with shareholders advocating for a new 9-member board, including 1 founder, 2 executives from within the group companies, 3 shareholders, 3 independent directors, and shareholder ratification within a month's time to appoint this board. The other resolutions up for vote include appointing a forensic auditor to scrutinize acquisitions, regulatory compliance, alleged breaches, and so on. They also seek to forbid founders from undertaking any direct or indirect transfer of any shares, rights, titles in the group companies without the shareholders' consent. Now, this group of shareholders, which is led by Prozis, Peak 15 and others, they have demanded management accountability for the delay in filing financial statements, their strategy for the BCCI insolvency case, the response to the ED notice last year, failure to resolve issues with the term loan B lenders, and so on. Now, despite Byju Ravindran's 11th hour attempt, if you'd call it that, to propose this modest board reconfiguration in his letter to shareholders you were reading, we understand investors consider it too little, too late. And this EGM, which is scheduled at 9 a.m. on Friday, we've been given to understand, even without the founder Byju Ravindran joining in, the resolutions can legally still be put to vote. So watch out for Friday. It's going to be a crucial day for the company and for the fate of its founder.
All right, Ritu, many thanks for joining us. Yes, this is going to be an important one to track. We are going to head into a break, but up next, multiple farmers are injured after the Haryana police resumes its crackdown. That and more when we return. The big national story, heavy security deployed across the national capital as farmers resumed their Delhi march after rejecting the government's offer of a 5-year minimum support price contract for 5 crops. The centre has appealed for a 5th round of talks, said it is ready to discuss outstanding issues. However, farmers are demanding a statement from the Prime Minister or the Home Minister assuring a legal guarantee on MSP. Several farmers were injured after the Haryana police fired tear gas shells at the Punjab-Haryana Shambhu border. My colleague Manavendra Yadav present there when the firing took place.
दिखा रहे शंभू बॉर्डर पे रबर बुलेट युगल पीछे आइए ये तस्वीरें बहुत खतरनाक है आगे दिखाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे
Scenes there at the Shambhu border, tear gas shells and rubber bullets in use by the Haryana police. In international news, Israel has stepped up its offensive in Gaza as it plans a full-scale attack on the city of Rafah. Meanwhile, the US has vetoed a UN Security Council resolution yet again calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. After rejecting the call for the 3rd time, the US has said that a ceasefire undermines the negotiations over the hostage deal. The UK abstained from the vote. The US is the lone vote against the resolution. In the conflict in Ukraine, which is now nearing its 2-year mark, Kyiv has alleged that Russia fired 19 attack drones over the last 2 days. The Ukrainian army has also said that there have been more than 80 combat clashes with Russia over the last 24 hours. Unconfirmed reports suggest that around 65 Russian soldiers were killed by Ukrainian missile attack. From Ukraine to Pakistan, 2 arch rivals in the Pakistan political landscape have joined hands yet again to keep Imran Khan's PTI out of power. Addressing a joint press conference, PPP chairman Bilawal Bhutto Zardari said that Shahbaz Sharif of PML Nawaz has been nominated for the Prime Minister's post. Bilawal's father, Asif Ali Zardari, will be the joint candidate for the office of the President.
हम सबका पूरा पाकिस्तान का दुआ ये है कि यह हुकूमत कामयाब हो और जो हमारे अंदरूनी मसाइल हैं, बैरून मुल्क जो हमारे मसाइल हैं, हर पाकिस्तानी का जो इस वक्त मईशत में मुश्किलात हैं, कि इन तमाम मसाइल का हल निकालने में अल्लाह ताला हमारे साथ दे.
Well, that is the latest there from Pakistan. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC-TV18. Stay tuned. We're back in a moment with more.